All right, how is everybody this evening? So here we are with Chapter 2 of the Batman 1943 serial. Yeah, so we're going to continue doing this with YouTube. So if you guys have your DVD ready to go, also make sure you have Chapter 2 highlighted. And so with that, you guys, so let's count down here to 3, 2, 1, unpause, or hit play. All right, so basically, here we are now with chapter 2, The Bat's Cave. So every single episode will begin with a title sequence. So we've got, of course, Lewis Wilson as Batman, Douglas Croft as Robin, J. Carroll Nash as the dreaded Dr. Daka, and, of course, Canadian actress Shirley Patterson as Linda Page. So as you notice that there's the Bob Kane sign. So the Bob Kane thing wasn't done until, obviously it went on, of course, with Bill Finger co-creating the character of Batman. And so yeah, one thing I forgot to mention about the last time is that the entire series is directed by Lambert Hillier, who did a load of serials for Columbia. And you'll basically see everything in that same font throughout the entire thing. So basically, every episode is going to begin with a small recap of what happened in the previous chapters. So usually, if there's a fight scene towards the end, they'll pretty much start with that, just like they are right now. So you'll pretty much get getting almost the same fight scene here that happened in the first episode, but a little bit more chopped up, not quite as long. Basically, it's the last like few more like highlights or whatever. But of course, everything's basically the same here. So, but you will see basically, it basically continues roughly right where the cliffhanger ending basically ends, and the new episode basically takes place like literally like a second after that. So once again, you have the lady screaming because hey, look, Batman's falling down a building, and he lands on one of those window cleaner things, and I hope the guy can actually stay on there. So now, so Robin's basically hiding from the guys now, and of course, this guy here messes up, and what happens? Well, you can tell that, well, the set's still pretty cheap as usual, but so now they've got something in store to have here on Dr. Daka, whatnot. So now they have no idea what this gun is. So now the interesting thing is that here it is. He tells that he's going to take him to the Bat's Cave, um, which we would all know later on in the comic books. It would be known as the Bat Cave. So they kind of got rid of the Bat's Cave and kind of just went with Bat Cave, and it's pretty much stuck ever since. And of course, we have the guy here who's I don't think he's really know who his character name is and whatnot. I don't think it's actually mentioned, but apparently, obviously, he's afraid of bats. This, of course, is how he gets him to talk and whatnot. But maybe you get a real good look of the bat suit. Of course, Robin's outfit, of course, is inspired by his original look. But the Batman outfit it's cheap, it's cheesy, and the cape is nowhere near as long as of course the sequel series would do for the 1949 series, but more of like a very smaller kind of cape, kind of similar to where the Christopher Reeve Superman cape would be many years later. Of course, Lewis Wilson, portraying Batman, basically, he does a pretty good job at, interrogating these guys, but that bat belt, it's like way up, like almost mid chest on him and stuff, and it's very cheesy, and apparently the whole cave can see with one little candlelight there sticking in the corner, but, like I say, it's a cheap set, and, I think a lot of the toys were somewhat inspired by this, of course, many years later. So now we got Alfred here. He's actually reading Detective. I think it's actually Detective Comics, but it's kind of funny what he's reading there is I think it might be Detective Magazines actually. But of course, this gives you like a time, which is real interesting when the series was made, is that there was no television. radio was barely out there, and we have living rooms where it's just just furniture, and people just sat there and talked. Basically, they had conversations versus him kind of reading out TVs and stuff like that. But oh god, that is such a great that's such a great gag. It's kind of funny how Alfred completely doesn't even see that Bruce and Dick are standing there, which is great. But he's apparently Alfred likes to read detective comics and mystery novels. At least this version of him that he does. He's kind of more of like the kind of the whiny butler type, whereas obviously the character would get many incarnations over the years, but he's more of like in line with like the original Alfred from the comics, from the 43 era of comics. But you'll see that the Batman delivers lots of uh, you know captured villains there in front of the police station and whatnot. You'll see that fairly often throughout the series and whatnot. But of course, yeah, I love it though. Another package from the Batman. This ought to tickle the old man. And basically, of course, they're referring to Captain Arnold. Of course, the character of Commissioner Gordon wouldn't be around quite yet. He was still, although I think the character came around in like 44, 45, somewhere around there. So they had to have a generic police captain, but the guy who plays uh, Captain Arnold, basically, he's he does a pretty decent job is what he's able to do, but but sad thing is you really don't see these guys really do much other than take in villains. But it's so funny that every villain that or the like henchman that Batman captures, he always has a bat symbol like just stamped on his forehead or whatever. But it's pretty cheesy. Like I said, this whole entire series is cheesy. I don't know. In certain episodes, I think I have more a better attachment to than others. Of course, when I watched this series, I watched it from 8 to 15 and then 1 to 7 with the original Good Times VHS tapes. So now Dr. Daka is pretty disappointed that they have lost their secret weapon, the radium gun. Yeah, he always kind of has this very kind of awkwardly, kind of very slow but fast moving talk with them and stuff. But that's probably the best shot of Daka you'll probably ever get throughout the entire series. Um, a lot of it is mainly like like angled shots like you're currently looking at now, and of course sitting down with the henchmen and stuff like that. But of course you got Fletcher there, who's kind of like one of the lead henchmen in this series. um, but so now they're at this these henchmen guys are trying to get a hold of Linda Page, basically trying to say, hey, we're gonna pretend that we're your uncle, and we're gonna meet up at this restaurant. And it's more of like it's supposed to be actually I think it's supposed to be like more of like a jazz type club, or like a club of some sort, especially because that was really hot in the 40s. Obviously, it's said they really don't have stuff like that anymore. I mean they do, but it's more of like it's just like more like just loud bang your head type music and stuff like that nowadays. But of course, back then, the one of the main, uh, you know, types of genres of music back then, of course, was, big blues, blues and jazz at that time, big band type of sound, which was huge. So Bruce and Dick are basically they're doing some sort of science, chemistry lab work and whatnot, because you'll notice that throughout the entire series that obviously Bruce being the greatest detective that he is, or as the comics say, he's kind of interesting that they put him with in like a science outfit and whatnot. But the location that they're going to is basically entitled the Blue Parrot, which is I love the look of that. I love the it would be just like an interesting club type of thing. Of course, as you can see, it's this very big band with piano jazz type sound and whatnot, and of course very reminiscent of what Casablanca would be. Of course, with that being a much bigger budget than this, but I mean, it's just kind of interesting of how they don't really have the Blue Parrot logo on the other menus and stuff. It's just stuff you don't really notice until much later on in life, as you've been, of course, when you've been watching this thing like I have since since childhood. it's just kind of interesting, seeing how uh, interesting of how this is. But so of course, they have phones back then, but of course they had to stand, and of course everything was all dial up back then, and they had an earpiece that you would hold up to your ear versus actually having the entire receiver as they would do many years ago. And of course, well, it's a bait trap. Typical for Linda Page and whatnot, as you'll see constantly throughout this series. But of course, Lewis Wilson's like, hey, wasn't she just there? Yeah, but she was talking on the phone, but now she's not there. But I mean, it's kind of interesting to see Douglas Croft act as Dick here, especially with the hairstyle, and you can tell he put in a lot of work and a lot of effort just to uh, for being how muscular he that he is. Especially when you'll see it in like lots of like interesting shots when he's pulling himself up on ladders and stuff like that. Of course, they had to because it had to be prepped and ready for the fight season. But you can tell it's supposed to be a night shot, but it's daytime, obviously. Um, so now they're going to pay a visit to another place entitled The House of the Open Door, which is more of just like your standard, gang type of place. But of course, you got that, sedan and whatnot. But so you're thinking that they're going to go, as Batman and Robin, but now they've kind of got like this different, kind of trying to, be, in disguise and whatnot. Of course, Dick there's, basically as a newspaper boy out there trying to sell papers for the Daily Record and whatnot. Of course, Bruce is, being, of course, the typical gangster type of look and whatnot. Now, and one thing I will mention is that you will definitely see this later on, in in the series with his introduction of another um, character name, which I'll mention much later when we get into the later episodes of the series. So they're basically just trying to, find out where Linda is basically, and I love it. The guy asks him, it's like, hey, looking for a room. No, I'm supposed to meet a guy here, just waiting for him, just the way he sounds and whatnot. But they didn't really have a whole lot of much to do except read newspapers and stuff. And of course, that guy's pretty oblivious to sort of Bruce just sneaking up there in the whatnot. But but it's kind of interesting though, is that so one thing you'll notice right there in this close-up shot is that Fletcher actually has a scar on his right wrist, which is what that little henchman was saying in the Batcave for him to say, hey, well, this is actually one of the guys, but they said that his, of course, he mentioned that the guy's name isn't Fletcher, it's Smith, but of course, the name of Smith could be anybody. That's used in fairly common in a lot of stuff. So having a register and whatnot. So if you notice his hand here, it goes over this. Now you'll see that that skeletal bones with 5. You'll see that an awful lot throughout the series. So you can tell that this guy, that the bellhopper or whatever, or the guy behind the desk, is also part of the Daka's gang and whatnot. But so Fletcher basically goes up to I think they're going up to it's the top 4, which is the 3rd floor, and obviously you can tell it's pretty much almost the same set, but very, very low budget and whatnot. But I mean, it's just kind of interesting seeing how much different the times were back then, because obviously there's no TVs in hotels, just beds and a couple of small pieces of furniture and a sneakily door that goes into a back room with chemicals and and a light apparently and a few other little things. But it's just kind of funny seeing this, how it's I mean, I tell you what though, but if you actually watch this with the sound on, some of Lewis's acting is really well done. I mean, same thing with Douglas Croft as well. Like I said, I mean, you'll be able to tell with how much how how much they had to put on, like as far as like doing weights and stuff like that to keep to keep their strength up, just to do a lot of this stuff, especially with the actor as Robin, and of course that's obviously very very hard to do. Obviously, you got to have a lot of upper body strength to do that. And of course, you can tell it's done on wires and stuff. But especially with Robin, these guys make it look like it's pretty easy, but obviously it's not. Of course, they're on a set there swinging around like looks like monkey bars, but you can tell. Look at Douglas Croft's legs right there. I mean, it sounds corny, but you'll notice that an awful lot. But of course, they're trying to figure out where that she thinks that they think that she has the radium gun, and of course they're obviously she has no idea what it is, but what can we say though? Batman and Robin to the rescue yet again, and there we go. So we got yet another great fight scene. So I think this episode actually has almost every episode has like one or two major fight scenes throughout every episode, but obviously they can't really keep pace with everything that's going on because this thing was of course shot in 4:3 aspect ratio because there was no widescreen at the time. But of course, with Lee Zoller's music, as you'll constantly hear throughout this, got some pretty cool action cues that happen throughout the whole series and whatnot. But but of course they're like, hey, what's going on? Hey, the acid bottle smashed. So yeah, they've actually got like some, I think some acid-based chemicals inside that room, which is not really all that good. I don't really know exactly what it could be, but for those of you who are who know about that type of stuff, put down there in the comments below and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean this now that's obviously very hard to do. So he's trying to, of course, electrocute him and whatnot is what he's trying to do, but that's got to be really hard to balance. You should keep yourself balanced with somebody on your shoulder and whatnot. But yeah, like I said, almost this whole thing was shot like in black and white. Obviously, very low budget. Of course, got some lights there in the background and whatnot. But yeah, that's probably gonna be so hard for Lewis Wilson as Batman having your coworker or your co-actress on your shoulder and whatnot. But you'll see that this get ready here to go to the next cliffhanger ending here, and which is right there. And so here we're going to chapter 3, which is Mark of the Zombies. So if you want to, please continue on with the next chapter of chapter 3, Mark of the Zombies. And with that, you guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification button, leave a comment down below, check out the Patreon page. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. See ya.